the separation of church and state is vital for a a well-functioning republic that we have. You really need it. You need to have this separation, and it's well defined in the Establishment Clause. We now have an administration, the Trump administration that is trying its hardest to like do away with things like the Johnson Amendment and it's Liberty Commission that is trying to investigate anti-Christian uh, things, and it's you know it's yeah, the way our country has worked for 250 years through a secular system is the best in the world. I really really say that with like tons of confidence. I think that a, a secular state is far better than any type of religious state. And these people call themselves Christian conservatives, Christian nationalists. I think are out of their tree. Why they want to insert religion into our government is just beyond me. It has never gone well. I mean, the best thing we do is separate those two things. You have your government; it does its government things. You got your faith if you want it. You go and you pray to whoever, and that's fine. But you keep it, you keep it separate. And I think it should be as clear as day. Um, in school, you want to provide a period for when people can go pray, or some could go to recess and party, and so be it. That's fine. You can do that. But you cannot like you cannot have a teacher take part or do anything. They got to stay neutral. They can do their own thing, but they can in no way influence. Like that coach going out there and praying with his kids. I played football years ago when I was 40. I was going through what I call midlife football crisis, and we had a coach who wanted to pray. I was brought up. I never prayed in my life. I've never prayed. I don't know how to pray. I don't know anything about like believing in spirits and ghosts and ghouls and things. So to me, this is just utterly foreign to believe in life after death and all these other things. It's just dumb, and it shouldn't apply. But whatever, that's a different part. I shouldn't get into my pity of religious people and how they whatever. That's a different thing. Yeah, but seeing somebody who's completely based on science, it just you can't ever prove or disprove that stuff, so why even bother with it, right? That's kind of the way I've always looked at it. It's you want to speculate about things, that's fine, but to base your life off of something that you can't prove or disprove, otherwise known as faith, is absolutely fool's errand. And so inserting that in your government is even worse. So, like I said, so I had this coach that would go out and pray, and everybody would sit there and pray, and they all seemed to know prayers, no matter what. These guys, too, by the way, would trash talk other people and say the most brutal, terrible things to people, and then they would all pray together. It was the most bizarre, odd sight. And I would stand there while these guys would all be, and it, did I if this was that was a voluntary uh, football team that I was on, but if you were in a high school situation and you had a coach that was telling the students, "Come on out and pray with me," and you were like, "Yeah, no, I'm good with that. I'm an atheist." Had I said that when I had briefly played football in high school, uh, I don't know how that would have gone over. That may have. It depends on the person. It depends on the guy, the coach, the girl, whoever. Are they gonna react to it in a way, and be like, because look at the Pew Research. You look at the way that people look at other people, and they've done this where they've they do these studies or research, and they ask 10,000 people. They say, "Hey, what religion are you?" And then they say, on a scale of 0 to 100, rate these other religions. All right, so you say, okay, I'm a Jehovah's Witness, and now you then rate all these other religions, and then they post this research and what people put back. The lowest, uh, by far, well, there was two that were, it's like 50 points lower than all the others. Two groups, shall we say. One was Muslims. It was like 33 on a scale of 0 to 100. They're looked at by other religions very low, very with not good intention. What am I saying? With not good feelings. Number 34, that means they would give it a 34 out of 100 on average. Um, was who else? Atheists. Atheists are and agnostics are rated very negatively. Funny enough, it's like a quarter of the population, but they are looked at as very negatively. Ironically, these religions, like you'll have um, uh, Christians look at Jews and Jews look at Christians, and they broke this down denominationally. So you could say like evangelicals love Jewish people, uh, and I think it's something to do with the rapture and all this other stuff, how it plays out. Uh, and I'm starting to think like Lutherans, love, um, uh, you know, Catholics, and but then there's some oddities, but by far they viewed the lowest was atheists and agnostics, and I should say the lowest was Muslims, and right beside it was atheists and agnostics. It's one of the reasons why we have almost no one in Congress that is a non-believer. They are almost all denominational. I mean, they're a member of a particular church or synagogue or mosque. I only know one, maybe two that are what I would consider atheists out of hundreds. Yet there is probably 25% of the population that would say they're agnostic atheist at this point. But they don't elect them because they're still looked at as negatively. I worked at a Catholic charity. I never told anybody. Well, I told some people, but I tried not to tell a lot of people that I was brought up, with like an atheist surrounding or agnostic, whatever you want to call it, uh, because I saw how negatively it was viewed. A few times I did tell people, I got such like, a specific one woman I worked with, very nice, very sweetheart. But she said, "Oh, where do you go? What church and this and that?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, I don't go to church." She said, "Well, what is your denomination?" And I said, "Well, I'm not Christian. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in any of it." And her mouth, her jaw dropped, and she was like, "Oh my God!" And of course I was like, "Oh, jeez, I just changed everything in this religion." I said, "Well, why is that?" She just said, I don't understand how you can be that way." And I said, I I don't know. I don't know. It's just the way I was brought up. So to me, it seems normal. To me, people believing in spaghetti god seems weird. Uh, but it's definitely looked at as negative, and so I keep it from people. Now, obviously I'm putting this video out here. It's not gonna work out well. Uh, and I furthermore, God, I had something to say on that, but about how you have to sometimes be. Yeah, well, I literally had to be careful. Oh, there was another woman at work. She was kind of a cool. She came over to me one day, and she obviously didn't know, that I didn't believe in anything. And she came over. She said, she must have felt like at this point she could talk to me and tell me things. And she said, you know, I don't think many people know this, but we work with a lot of atheists and a lot of lesbians. And I was like, oh, wow. I had to like fake. I was like surprised. And I don't know what about the atheists because I didn't know anybody else there that was. But um, I definitely got a kick out of that whole. There was actually quite a few gay. men and women that I worked with. But I mean, who cares? Of course, see, that's the funny thing. I ended up being, as the atheist or an agnostic or atheist agnostic, uh, you end up being, interestingly enough, more tolerant than the religious people. Uh, and I always thought it was kind of the opposite. I always thought, like, well, because from what I learned with all my Irish Catholic friends that I had, well, oh, geez, atheists are terrible people, this and that, so I always kind of felt like, oh, I'm not going to bring it up. And God, man, they're the most intolerant people. Uh, there's all sorts of people that they don't like or differ with. To me, everyone's just the same old, same old. I don't really group people by religious creed. I guess part of me, in a sense, does now more so than I ever did when I was young. Because now I see people who really, really believe, and I find it such an odd thing that I kind of, it's like the dog that looks crooked at somebody. I'm like, really? Hmm. Seems completely illogical. I don't understand how you could, but whatever. Uh, yeah, whatever floats your boat, and that's part of the whole libertarian thing. Whatever floats your boat. But yeah, you don't want to push it on other people. So don't and don't do not bring it in government. It's a horrific idea. Ye- yeah. Um, and I think in our constitution, this we do have to provide schooling. And those schools should be public and they should be secular. There should be no religion in there. Nor, as the Establishment Clause, if you read it, there should be no establishment of religion or a state religion or any of that. It the government shouldn't be doing it. It shouldn't be involved in it. It shouldn't have anything to do with that. It should be doing its own thing. So yeah, stay out of that. It's works way better when religion is not involved. I would argue anybody with that theocratic institutions are inferior to the one that we have. Just I truly believe it. Our system works well, and now you have a president in there that is actually trying to bring in theocracy. Of course, many other plutocracy and amongst other bizarre. Yes, he wants to bring in religion and that worries somebody like me who's not religious that I see them with this weird ass Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense slash War, he wants to call it. This guy's a freak. Tattoos of the Crusades all over his body. I mean, come on. What's up with you, you weirdo? You rapist to boot, Like this guy's a adjudicated, well, I shouldn't say adjudicated rapist. He isn't adjudicated, but he's got multiple ND non-disclosure agreements with women because of his interactions with them in the past. One that I've read about with is pretty specifically from seeing the police report. It's a rape, and it's probably a roofie rape. Uh, it's pretty creepy. He's a pretty creepy freaking guy. And I hate to say it, um, yeah, he's a piece of garbage. And this religious guy. This guy's far more religious than someone like me. Yeah, it's not saying much. Anybody's far more religious than me, but this is the moral character of these people. It's just funny, This is the thing too, is you have like someone like um, Christy Nome, right? Her and talking about how she's a conservative Christian and she's a Christian nationalist. Meanwhile, she's flying around in the plane that she purchased with the taxpayer money with Corey Lewandowski. You know, what do you think they're doing? If you, I don't know if you saw pictures of that bed there, but she's banging this guy, and they call it the fuck plane. And you know, what's going on with her husband? You say, geez, why isn't he like concerned? Why doesn't he say anything? Why isn't this guy doing it? Well, of course, we come out the other day and you see this guy wearing uh, prosthetic breasts, and he's all over the interwebs wearing that. And now she's saying, our family needs private time. Blah, blah, blah. It's just funny. This is this Christian couple touting their religion, right? She's banging some guy, and her husband's meanwhile he's cross dressing. Dude, just you know what? There's nothing wrong with that either, too. There's nothing wrong with your polyamorous, or whatever you want to call that relationship. And well, I guess because it sounds like he's okay with it. And it's nothing wrong with him cross dressing. I really don't care. That's why I like libertarianism, and I don't. Yeah, to each his own. Whatever floats your boat, man. But the fact that you're like living this life of I'm a Christian man and I'm a Christian woman and we're Christian nationalists and we want to put biblical verses in the government and have this stuff. Are you out of your mind? Like, just be true to yourself. Participate in that orgy that you want to participate in. Don't fight it. Oh, it is comical. It is comical. You know, so they're the ones. I'm like, I still got a cold in my lungs. I'm a hardcore Christian. I want this and that. And they're swearing all this, family values stuff. Oh, good for you. But again, like I said, I don't really think that's, but the the fact that you come off that you're this, family values person, but in secret, they're all cheating on their wives and husbands. And I think they're the worst people. It's interesting. I did read research that was done. Oh, it wasn't by Pew Research. I forget who did this, but this was a while back, and it looked at all the different denominations and who used abortions and the most serial, like not serial adulterers, the ones that had the highest rate of adultery and things like that. And it isn't what you think. The highest rate of abortion use was among Catholic women. I don't know if that's still the same, but that was interesting because that just kind of blew me away. I was like, oh, well, Catholic. I grew up with tons of Catholics, so I was like, yeah, but I guess it makes sense. And what was the group that had the highest adultery rate? And I'm not sure how they did the research, but the highest adultery rate was amongst evangelicals. They had quite a significant adultery rate, and the lowest was atheist agnostic. How funny! So, yeah, it's a funky world, man. A lot of that is like projectionism. It's in psychology. People that will are some they'll who goes into priesthood oftentimes, right? Is somebody who's kind of homosexual, and I'm not saying generalizing all priests and whatnot are homosexual. I'm just saying that oftentimes, in order to fight those, I guess, inner urges, and if you're not like liberated mentally, where you think it's okay. Oh, you grew up in a family. Like I grew up in a family. I swear to God, my mother would have been psyched if I came home and just told her I was dating a man. That would have been her. She would have been like, she used to counsel um, gay prisoners. And that had AIDS. No, again, I lie not. Um, I swear she was like waiting for the day that I came home and told her, you know, I love men, and so I had any opportunity if I wanted to be, and that's another thing too. People say, oh, if you actually let men, boys or whatever, be, they're gonna end up being gay. They're gonna, if you play with a doll or if you play with um, or a girl plays with uh, the Tonka toys instead of the dolls, she's gonna be a lesbian or something. Then this stuff is just like you're born this way, and you're not. I don't care who says Well, I tell you, there are some people that are able to swing both ways. That are able to do it, but uh, and yeah, all the power to you. Because I mean, imagine that you go to a bar and you're like, hey, men, women, take you either. More fish in the sea for you. I mean, you got to admire that, I guess. So, us heteros, cis, or whatever they call it, we're kind of screwed. We can only, we look at half the population. Um, so yeah, I grew up in a family that was open with that stuff and could have cared less if, you came out of the closet. If anything, maybe you've celebrated it. Maybe back Christmases and other religious holidays would have been more, right? If I came out. So, uh, but again, it's it's that's something, that I don't care about. I don't as a libertarian, or secular libertarian. I don't care about that type of stuff. And I'm going to elaborate on that, my view, in other talks. But this one I specifically just wanted to stick with the separation of church and state. I just think we should have a clear separation of church and state. We don't want to muck up our government with religion. You just don't. Plus, which denomination are you going to choose? Which one's the right one, right? Or which, if you were to go, beyond denomination, because I just figured by default it's going to be Christian. So which of the monotheistic religions, are you going to choose, right? Is it going to be Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Zoroastrianism? I don't know. I'm trying to think how many other monotheistic type religions. Anyways, the those are all the Abrahamic religions. Um, yeah, that stuff should just keep it to yourself. Do your own thing, right? And let all the power to you. To each his own. So I yeah, that's all. So separation of church and state. That's all I guess I want to say on that. But there should be a clear separation. We do not want to mix it. We don't want to have that. If you want to have religious school, somebody wants to have uh, a religious school for their kids, yeah, so be it. But I definitely don't take taxpayer money too and mix that into that. I don't think that's a good idea. I no, I take that back. I don't think it's a good idea. I think it's a terrible idea. I think it's not the right idea. It's wrong. Uh, Public schools are public schools and should be funded with our taxes. Religious schools have to be privately funded. Period. It's just the way it is. And yeah, no vouchers. I don't think for that type of situation. You want to have, yeah. I'm not going to get into the school system, but you know what it is. I mean, secular public schools, and that's it. No Ten Commandments being hung in the classrooms. You want to hang the Bill of Rights? Absolutely. Yeah, you want to mandate that by law, put it in the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence? Absolutely, put it in there. Ten Commandments? No way. Out the window. Sorry. And gets, no, that gets thrown out. And it should be thrown out every time. And I hope the Supreme Court learns, like, yeah, we cannot let people post these. That's their religion. And those who will say, I love, you'll hear this. I can't stop talking on the subject. There's just so much vast you can talk about it. But the whole thing with we don't want no, we want the Ten Commandments on there because of its historical value, and it's not a religious thing. Look at the first of the Ten Commandments. It's thou shalt not believe any other god but me or it or whatever. It's self-explanatory. That's stupid. Stupid talk. When somebody just, yeah, no, you're wrong. You're completely wrong. So that's what a clear separation, church and state, based on the Establishment Clause, which is pretty clear. I think it is. Uh, and if you want to do religion, do it. That's your private thing. That's your right, but it's your private thing. It's got nothing to do with the public school systems. It's got nothing to do with government. Period.